Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's the July Developer Community Call for Office Add-ins, and I'm here with Kim in Redmond, and we're going to take you through what to expect. We have several different speakers today. Here's a little information just about the community call, and for anyone who doesn't have it, there's the link. Here, I'll paste that in the chat window. I assume all of you who are on the call have this in your calendar, but if it's your first time, that's how to add it to your calendar. Get right into it for this call. It's monthly, second Wednesday of every month, as you probably know. Let's take a look at what we have coming here today. So today, I'm going to give you a quick overview of Office add-ins for anybody who's new to that. Then we're going to take a look at the Outlook JavaScript APIs and the Excel JavaScript APIs. We've made ongoing investments in both those. We're going to talk about what's new in the next requirement sets coming for both of those. Then we have kind of a deep dive into the Microsoft 365 app certification process. A bunch of information about how that works for getting your app certified for Microsoft 365. And then one of our partners here, Daniel Filstra, is going to give us a look at Analytics Solver, which is a really massive Office add-in, just one of the biggest examples of using the platform. And I'll just kind of leave it at that, but it's a very fascinating piece of technology they've built that he'll dive into there. And that's it. Here's the people who are going to cover all those that I just mentioned. I'll kick things off here with a quick overview, and then we'll hand it off to Sohail to dive into the Outlook APIs. Take it from there. For those who are new to the platform, Office add-ins are just web apps. You build them with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And what makes it an Office add-in is we have a little manifest file that our tooling, the YoOffice command line tool, generates this file for you, and it just points to that web app, and that's how all the Office clients know where your web app is, and then that's what loads in your task pane or loads content if it's a content add-in and so on. So once you've created that manifest, you can publish it to anywhere Office runs. You can put it in the store. It'll run on all the different clients. Of course, there are different APIs for each of the clients. However, we can talk about that here as we get into it. And what you can do with Office add-ins, you can hit any web service, web API, just like any other web app. You can also, of course, use Microsoft Graph. Single sign-in is an area we continue to improve the experience in there. And then the really interesting part that is most of what we focus on in this call each month is the Office JS APIs that give you access to content within the document. So within the Word document, within the Excel worksheet, within the Outlook email or calendar, and so on. So those are all the things you can do with Office add-ins. And that's the link right there for where to learn more about how to build Office add-ins. I'll paste that into the chat window, and Kim, hand it back to you here.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. All right, so first up today we have Sohail here from the Outlook team. He's going to talk a little bit about what's new with the Outlook JavaScript API. Sohail?
Sure. Hey everyone, this is Sohail. I'm a program manager in the Office Extensibility Platform team, and I own the Outlook add-ins platform. So last month, actually the month before last, we talked about requirements at 1.7. And there were a bunch of APIs on the Mac platform that were still in progress. Happy to announce that we have completed that work. So now requirements at 1.7 is completely supported across New OVA, Outlook 2016, Click to Run, and Outlook for Mac. The APIs that I show under the red box are the new ones that we have recently released to prod. And those APIs now allow you to get the recurrence of a meeting, the ID of a meeting, and also get events when a recurrence is changed, or the recipients are changed, or the appointment time is changed on a meeting or an appointment. Requirement set 1.8 is the set of new APIs that we are currently building. Some of them are in preview already, and we also made significant progress on that in the last couple of months. A couple of months ago, New OVA, majority of the APIs were in progress. As you can see, the attachment APIs are already in prod, and categories, internet headers, and locations, we are working on them and hope to release them by end of July. And support for shared folders, which is the shared properties API, and support for on-send event in new OVA is in progress, and shared folder support for shared folders and shared properties APIs is already in prod. Similarly, support for on-send event for Outlook desktop click to run build. That functionality is in Insiders. So if you can test it right now, it has been in preview for a while, but now we have started to rolling it out to Insiders, and after Insiders, it's going to reach the prod channel soon. On Mac also, we made significant progress across all the APIs. Majority of them are in Insiders at 20%, and we will continue to roll it out to more customers in the Insiders channel in the coming weeks. And once we finish the Insiders channels, we will use the same approach to gradually roll out the changes to the prod channel. So we're hoping by end of July, all these APIs that are currently in the Insiders channels will be available in prod. Couple of exceptions, the location API is in progress. That will currently, we estimate it's going to be available in prod going through the Insiders channel by end of September, and support for on-send event in Mac is estimated to be available in prod by end of August. Some additional updates. We are thinking of picking up multi-select support, and what it means that when a user selects multiple messages, we will allow an add-in to run on that. And the current plan is that we will introduce a new API. We won't introduce the ability to get the item object of all the selected items because that has severe performance implications. But what we will do is that we will introduce a new API that will give you the item IDs of the selected emails, and your add-in can use item IDs to call EWS and REST and take the appropriate action that it needs to do. We are also introducing a new capability. It's currently in progress, which is called auto-run add-ins. I believe I talked about it in the last call as well. So this is the ability to automatically run an add-in when a user starts composing a message. And the current use case these auto-run add-ins will support is message tracking. So when an auto-run add-in is invoked, they will have access to a new API that we are building, which is called insert tracking, append tracking pixel on send. And so that's the current plan. And then as things progress, we will think through gradually adding additional scenarios to auto-run add-ins. Please note, we deliberately made a decision to not allow any functionality to be available as part of the auto-run add-in because one of the key things is that we do not want the compose experience to be impacted. So that's why we are taking a careful, measured, and gradual approach to enabling additional scenarios for auto-run add-ins. Block on send, which is supporting an add-in to run when a user clicks on send, is currently at 100% Insiders for Mac and Windows. And on OVA, we are fixing the quick compose support for on send. So as you can see, it's really close. We are estimating we will have everything done and out in production by end of August. That's basically a quick update on Outlook APIs.
Awesome. Thanks, Sahil. Great to see all the progress we're making on the Outlook front. It seems like there's a ton of new stuff to talk about every call, so thanks a lot for that. So next we have some updates about the Excel JavaScript API. We have a couple of new folks joining us today that you haven't heard from before. They both normally work out of China on our team there, focus on the Excel APIs. Ring is here, and Yu is actually, she's joining us from China, and Yu is actually joining us from here in Redmond via Teams. So with that, Ring, go ahead and share your screen, and you can start presenting your first slide.
Okay, thank you, team. Let me share my screen first. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruo Ying from Office Extensibility team. Philip and I will present some ongoing Excel APIs. Firstly, I will present the uncalculated event. So as you may all know, one of the Excel superpower is the calculation. You can add a formula to a cell, and when the related cell's value is changed, this cell will be automatically calculated. So for API side, we provide the uncalculated event. Whenever there is a recalculation happened on the specific worksheet, the uncalculated event will be fed. But there's a question that we know, the developers know there are some cells recalculated, but where are those calculated happened? We don't have that information. So to resolve that problem, we want to add a property called address to return all the cells which are recalculated after for this calculated event. So with this information, you will know exactly what cells are calculated and the value are changed, and then you can do your further actions. So to explain this event, we have a quick demo about the behavior to let you understand how it works. So this is a Excel worksheet with two tables. So in the left side is the sales data per stage, and in the right side is the data of is a table of the sales manager of each of the company. So each manager has their own discount. So basically, in the right side table, the discount is associated with the left side table's profit and the discount. So when I changed the discount in the right side table, for example, I changed the sales manager Brandy's discount to 87. You can see that the sales which related to Brandy, the profit and discount are highlighted. That's because the content ID in the center of the Excel used the event to get all the addresses which are affected by the calculate event, and then highlight the cells and also highlighted the data on the map. So this is one simple sample to show that with the address property, we can know what happens in the Excel sheet, and we can do all the further actions. Okay, that's all for the calculate events update. Philip, you can feel free to present yours.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. This is Philip, and also called Yu, working for the Excel JavaScript API from China team. Today here, I'm just going to introduce the new APIs we were going to introduce in the coming months. That is the group and ungroup JavaScript API. Group ungroup functionality is something the Excel already had to make the customer data more organizable and manageable. For example, if you have a sales data of a sales report from January to June, sometimes you want to present them by quarters. So you will group the January to March data as a quarter one group, and then the April to June numbers as a quarter two groups. So then you can just hide and show the details of each group in order to present each quarter's data. I have a very quick examples here probably people can see. So this is just a simple worksheet that's representing the sales data from different regions, different states. You can see that here I already grouped the East region's data together as one group. You can show and hide the details of that regions. And also, as I mentioned, if you want to group the quarters data, you can group the Q1, January from March, and show and hide the details of that. So coming back to the JavaScript API part, we want to also empower the third-party add-in developers with this kind of powerful Excel functionalities. So we will just introduce a set of JavaScript APIs that developers can do exactly the same things, group, ungroup the set of rows or columns through the APIs. I also have a demo here that's showing how it will looks like in the ScriptLab examples. I will play that. You can see that I have a ScriptLab examples. I added the sample data. This is the data exactly I showed before. And I can just using this JavaScript APIs by exactly click a button, then all the countries numbers and states numbers can group automatically. And also, if I want to show each details in specific group, we also have the API to support that. I can hide all the groups and show the groups together. But finally, if you do not want that anymore, you can ungroup all of them. Okay, yeah, this is all for the group and ungroup JavaScript API part. Kim, I will hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ring, and thanks, you. A quick question for each of you. What requirement set, or what's the current status that these APIs are available in? Are they in preview right now, or are they actually part of a requirement set yet?
Yeah, currently this API are not in the beta state or in the preview state. It's still under development, and we believe that it will come in the coming months.
Okay, perfect. And is that the same state that the OnCalculated event is in, Ring?
Yeah, yes, the same stage.
Okay, awesome. So just for folks on the call, these are in development, quick preview of stuff coming soon, and we'll be sure to announce that whenever they're available. Cool. Yeah. So next, we're moving on to talk about the Microsoft 365 app certification process. Anand is here joining us.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about app protection and specifically app certification within the App Protection Charter. So app protection is a new initiative that we have kicked off in the M365 security and compliance team. And we have basically three main goals with this app protection initiative. The first one is to ensure that our customer data is protected from app abuse. And I'll talk about a little bit of the trends that we see with app abuse in the industry. The second one is we want to make sure that we foster a trustworthy Microsoft app ecosystem, which includes all the add-ins that we have in our marketplace. We don't want our marketplace to be kind of a flea market. We want to make sure that it's of high quality so that our customers can use those apps with confidence. And the third objective of this initiative is to make sure that we provide an end-to-end app experience for our customers. A lot of our customers are giving us feedback that they do not have a lot of visibility into what their apps are doing, as well as once they enable those apps or add-ins in their ecosystem, what those are doing to their data or in their ecosystem. So we want to make sure that we provide an end-to-end app experience for our customers. So those are the three main goals by which this new initiative we have kicked off. And as I said, I do not have any demos, but I want to kind of share with you some of our initial thoughts in the space. And also more importantly, I want to kind of solicit your help so that we can chart a path or a roadmap for this area. So in the end, I will have my email ID. So if any one of you are interested in providing your feedback or contributing towards charting this path, I would really welcome that. So my team, which is M365, Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance team, we are responsible for products like Microsoft Identity Protection, Microsoft Threat Protection, Microsoft Security Configuration, which is used to be called as Secure Score, things like Privileged Access Management, Customer Lockbox, and we also take care of the entire data center security. And we have been really diligent about protecting our data centers and also ensuring that our first-party apps that we develop are really secure and compliant. So a lot of our investments have kind of gone into these areas in protecting the data center and protecting our first-party apps. But we've realized that we need to really amp up our investments in the third-party apps area as well. And the reason why we need to focus on this area is because of the trends that we see. Kim, if you would go to the next slide. So what we are realizing is that the app-based attacks are getting more and more prevalent. Like if you see, here is kind of a chart that I have, a timeline, if you will, from 2017 till March of 2019, where we have seen a really uptake in app-based attacks. We have seen, reports of election interferences, leveraging OAuth attacks, OAuth-based phishing attacks. You guys probably would have seen the Gmail attacks, the OAuth phishing attacks that happened against Gmail users. About 0.1% of their user base was impacted. And we have seen all these nation-state attackers like APT32 using OAuth phishing as a mechanism by which they gain access to customer data. March 2018, you guys all are familiar with the Cambridge Analytica, which was kind of, again, using an app. The data gathered was kind of sold behind the scenes. And even our first-party apps, we had an incident in December where one of the domains was domains that Microsoft owned was not renewed properly, and somebody got hold of that, and they used that to do a token hijacking attack against us. And as late as March, as early as March 2019, we have seen attacks by Egyptian government using OAuth apps, and they use that to phish the activists. So we have seen a real big uptake in the app-based attack patterns. So Kim, if you go to the next one. And the way the way it impacts our app ecosystem is a lot of the enterprise customers that we are talk to, they are shutting down all their third-party app installations because they are they've read about this news, they have learned about this, and they don't want any of these apps in their ecosystem because they do not know whether to trust them or not. So they are shutting down all these third-party apps in their installation. Some of the customers, they want to use those apps because a lot of their users are saying that they want to use the apps. So what they're doing is they are doing extensive testing on these apps before they let these apps into their ecosystem. This kind of possesses a n square kind of problem because you have n number of customers, and you have n number of apps. So every customer is testing every app, which is not kind of a scalable model. And some of the customers we have talked to, they said that certifying an app for usage within their organization can take anywhere from 2 weeks to about 4 weeks. Right, so it's kind of it delays the whole process. And even Microsoft IT, till recently, we had turned off all our new app capabilities. And then the result of this is ISVs and developers, you guys lose a lot of market share. So that's kind of how we see the impact on the app ecosystem. And the reason why we want to kick off this new initiative is to address some of these concerns or the trends that we are seeing. And some of the feedback, again, from the customers and some of the developers and ISVs that we've heard is, customers are saying, hey, I have to jump through too many hoops for compliance because a lot of these apps do not come with security or compliance details. So I'll have to either go do it myself or, I'll have to scramble for details. And the other thing they say is that they do not have visibility into what apps are safe. So again, as I was saying before, the n square problem, they go and do their own extensive security and privacy reviews. And the other aspect of the feedback was we want to get end-to-end insights of the app usage. We want to see the complete life cycle of the app. And we want to make sure that there is a pulse of what the app is doing within my organization at any point of time. So that's the set of feedbacks that we're hearing from the customers and from developers and ISVs, which are represented by in this call. We hear that you guys can't get in the door because it's hard to drive adoption because of these issues, and you also want to work with Microsoft to build trust with our customers. So the feedback has been overwhelmingly there that the app ecosystem needs a little more work to make sure that our customers can trust the apps that are in our app stores, and it will kind of reduce their enablement lifecycle as well. So based on all these feedback and the trends that we are seeing, we are kind of the app protection initiative that I mentioned, we are focusing on 4 main areas. The first one is how can we make sure that the apps that we have are verified and certified. Verification is the publisher who's publishing it is verified. There is a base level of verification that happens today before you list your app in AppSource or any of the app stores today. And then the app itself, what are some of the security and compliance checks that these apps can have is something that we want to focus on. The second is the secure and compliant app development. This is like what can Microsoft provide app developers and ISVs so that you can build apps that are secure and compliant out of the box. There are a lot of security and compliance checks that we follow for our first-party apps. The thought process there is like, can we extend some of these controls to our third-party app developers as well, so you guys can leverage this from the get-go. And then the third and fourth, the third one is providing a unified app governance experience for our customers so that they can enable or disable apps based on what app is doing within their ecosystem. And we want to kind of amp up our app detection and remediation as well. So if we see an app behaving maliciously, we want to be able to detect that first and also provide controls to our customers so that they can auto remediate some of these actions as well. So those are the 4 areas that this new initiative is going to focus on. But I want to kind of dive a little deep into the first part, which is the app verification and certification. So the way we see app verification and certification is in 2 phases, or in 2 segments. The first one is self-attestation. Self-attestation is like there is a set of security and compliance check marks, and the ISV or the developers will do a self-attestation, will provide their own view on those controls. And then the second one, which is what a lot of our customers have asked us for, is a Microsoft certified app, which means that there are a set of controls that we've defined, and Microsoft is attesting to it to say that yes, the ISV or the developer is following those controls as defined. So those are the two ways we see the certification process. And on self-attestation, the Microsoft Teams announced a self-attestation program at Build a month ago. So it is available for any apps apps for Teams today, and I've provided the link there, which is aka.ms app certification. So if you go there, you can see a set of controls. There are 4 buckets under which the controls are organized. So this is what Teams have announced at Build that I was mentioning. So if you do aka.ms/app certification, you can see it. There are about like 40, I believe, different ISVs that have gone through this self-attestation process. So if you take one as an example, which is, so as you see, this badge kind of says that this app is self-attested. So if you go here, there are 3 sections. Sometimes you will see the 4th section as well if the app is CSA or Cloud Security Alliance certified, but in this case it's not. So that's why you see only 3. General is like you get general information about the publisher as well as the app. Data handling, this is where it kind of starts to get into the details. This talks about how the app handles data. Specifically, if the app is using any Microsoft Graph APIs, there needs to be a justification that needs to be provided for each one of those scopes. And then a bunch of questions on whether it's handling telemetry data, whether how it's storing organizational data, whether the data is encrypted, whether you have 2FA for your admins to access this data. So there are a bunch of questions that we have for data handling. And the third part, which is security and compliance, this is the data for this is fed from a CASB solution that Microsoft has called Microsoft Cloud App Security, or MCAS. So if you go to MCAS, you will see most of this information. MCAS is an app catalog. They are a shadow IT app discovery platform. They also have ability to assess risks, and you can set app policies and alerts for different based on different criteria for MCAS. So as part of the certification program, we pull this information that MCAS already has. MCAS has an app catalog which contains about 16,000 different apps. And they have about 80 different attributes that you're seeing in the screen that they do again, this is a good faith kind of data collection. We do not attest to this to say that, hey, yes, this data is indeed correct, but we provide this information to the developer or ISV from MCAS so that they can do a self-assessment on that to say that the data that we have is indeed correct, or if there is data that is missing or represented incorrectly, they will have a way to provide that feedback and get that data corrected. So the MCAS data contains, like, as general security. It has a bunch of security questions, compliance, and legal. So we currently show these three different tabs for self-certification. Again, the initial release, the way we rolled out was we reached out to each of these ISVs. It was tracked through an Excel sheet, which we are converting into a form. So there is a more formal way of doing this now. But our goal is to make sure this is rolled out to all of M365 apps, not just Teams. And this is integrated with Partner Center as well. So when, as an ISV, you log into the Partner Center and you identify your app, there is a way for you to provide self-attestation details for your app right from there as well. So it's all like a coherent and integrated experience. All right. So on self-attestation, as I was mentioning, it's all based off MCAS catalog. The data that comes from MCAS, we provide this to ISVs and developers. Developers can provide their own self-assessment on that, and then we publish that data into that website. So currently it is supported only for Teams apps, but we are working on making it available for rest of the M365 apps as well. We are also working with AppSource and Partner Center to provide a more cohesive experience, so you don't have to do this in multiple places. And for the second part, which is M365 certification, this is where I would need some feedback and help from you as to how you guys see this certification process kind of pan out. What are some of the things that you are hearing from your customers on that? So I would love to hear that feedback. But the way we are thinking about is it's certified by Microsoft, which means that there is a set of controls, just like in self-attestation. But these controls, Microsoft attests to those. And once successfully a app has successfully gone through a Microsoft certification, there will be a badge that will be shown for that app in our app stores. So we expect the Microsoft certification to be also like self-attestation, and this will be kind of a way for developers and ISVs to move from a self-attestation certification model to a Microsoft certification model. What I mean by that is, like, you have an app that is self-certified, and now you're getting a lot of usage, and there are more and more customers wanting to use these apps. So that's when you probably can make a choice to say that, hey, now I want to move from a self-attestation to more of a Microsoft certified badge for my app, and you would have a pathway to move from self-attestation to that. And then, we want to include a security assessment as well as part of that. And one of the other thought process here is like, hey, if this app is being developed within a Microsoft ecosystem, like, if you have VMs in Azure, or, if Microsoft can manage some of these environments, then probably we could provide more security and compliance controls for it, just like how we would treat our first-party apps. Probably third-party apps could also benefit from some of that if it is within our app ecosystem. Again, yeah. We've initially started the investigations on the Microsoft certification program. So that's where, I would love to hear your feedback. So if you're interested in contributing towards the app verification and certification program, or if you have any feedback, I would love to hear from you. My email is anandme@microsoft.com. If you already have an app that is in App Store, if you would include those details, I would really, really appreciate that.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Anand. It's really neat to hear what we're doing on that front. And I think developers and ISVs will be happy to see when we roll this out. But in the meantime, folks, feel free to provide feedback here and connect with Anand via his email address. We'll paste that into the chat as well momentarily.
Thanks, Kim.
So, yep. Really happy to have Daniel Filstra here with us today from Frontline Systems. Daniel did a presentation at this year's Build Developer Conference a couple months back. And one of their add-ins, the Analytic Solvers, is, as Doug alluded to, a really complex, big, historically COM add-in that they've recently, in recent years, rebuilt using Office.js. So Daniel's here to talk a little bit about that. So Daniel, feel free to share your screen and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Hello, everybody. We've been on these calls for a while, and I recognize some names. I'm Dan Filstra from Frontline Systems. Little quick background on us as a company. We've been around for a long time, more than 25 years. We are the company that built Solver in Desktop Excel a long time ago. Nowadays, we do a spectrum of things: data mining, machine learning, simulation risk analysis, decision trees, and of course optimization, as Solver does. And since we've been around for a long time, we've sold software licenses to a lot of companies. You can see a whole bunch of logos here. We think we've sold to a little more than half of the billion-dollar companies in the world, companies with more than $1 billion in revenue. And then the third bullet is, I think, especially interesting: 550,000 users of almost all free Office add-ins, sort of cloud analytics users. That started with Solver. So there's Solver in Desktop Excel, but not built into Excel Online. So we created that app way back in 2013, and it's in Microsoft AppSource. Another one we did is what we call Excel Miner Analysis Tool Pack, because there's no analysis tool pack in Excel Online, but using this app, you get all that same functionality. So because we've been at this now for 6 years, using the JavaScript APIs and as new APIs have come out, we've used more and more of them. We've gained a certain amount of experience with cloud analytics. A little bit about optimization in particular, in case this is not very familiar to people. I just wanted to show some of the applications in industry for all kinds of companies who have plants shipping to warehouses or dealers or something. You can optimize, find the optimal lowest cost shipping routes. If you have a portfolio of stocks, you can choose the stocks that maximize your return for a given level of risk. You could we have scheduling of surgeons and nurses, minimizing waste, maximizing reach. You see all these things. And some common verbs of choosing, scheduling, allocating resources. Resources can be people, can be vehicles, can be space in a warehouse, can be time on a production line, and so on. You're allocating those things, making decisions subject to constraints like, we've got only so much inventory, or only so many surgeons, or only so many operating rooms, and so on. So that's what optimization's about. And to show you a little example of this to begin, I'm just going to bring up, this is Desktop Excel, and this is a COM add-in. This is the conversion. And you can see we're on the Analytics Solver tab and the ribbon, and we have a data mining tab as well. And I want to just go through this particular model in a little detail, and then we're going to also see it in Excel Online. So this is a very simple case of the classic airline crew scheduling problem. So we're the airline, and we have a set of flights where we need to have crews. And so this is actually going to be a calculation, and we want exactly one working crew on every one of these flights. And then over here, we essentially have crews who originate, stay overnight in Salt Lake, in Dallas, and in Chicago. And what they can do on any given day, they will fly from city to city, and they can either be the working crew or they can just ride as passengers. So like, and each one of those is called a rotation. So this one is, we're going to work from Salt Lake to Dallas, and then we're going to fly back to Salt Lake again as the working crew. This one, say this one here, we're going to work from Salt Lake to Dallas and then to Chicago, and then we're going to fly all the way back to Salt Lake as passengers. So those are rotations. So this is a regular what-if model, of course, so we can do this manually. You can say, well, we'll just assign the Salt Lake crew to the first available rotation, same with the Dallas crew, and the same with the Chicago crew. So we get an assignment, but it's obviously not a very good one. We are, by the way, calculating the cost to the airline, of using the crews in this way. Problem is, over here we have, no crews for a bunch of flights and 2 crews on one of the flights, which is obviously not what we want. So, so now we call upon the optimizer to find the assignments of rotations that will minimize cost while covering all the flights. And that's just defined over here with cell selections. We want to minimize this total cost by making all these decisions, ones or zeros, and we want all these calculated cells to come out to be exactly 1. So we can run that. This again is running locally on this machine. So we run it using, we invoke a lot of algorithmic code, a linear programming, mixed integer programming engine to do that, but the results come back in the worksheet, and we have certain assignments, all the flights are covered, and we have minimized our cost. So in a minute, we're going to see all that happen in Excel Online, but notice that we brought in a bunch of algorithmic code to solve this in a DLL in process on the local machine. Everything's happening on the local machine. Okay, so now for some time, this is now shipping and it's in Microsoft AppSource. But it's been a huge undertaking to do this. It's many millions of lines of algorithmic and UI code, 180 custom functions, lots of dialogues, charts, ribbons, so on. And of course, it was COM-based, which meant that we could not offer it on the Mac. And then if you look at in a little more detail at all the kinds of interactions that our software has with Excel, pretty much everything, ribbon, task pane, dialogues, custom functions, events when the user takes various actions, reading, writing cells, and in certain cases getting the whole workbook contents or inserting a new worksheet. And just to picture that, now we're in Excel Online. This is just a slide, but you can see the ribbon. You can see the task pane where we're drawing quite a bit. You can see a pop-up dialog, which is through the JavaScript APIs. But beyond that, there's a bunch of other things. So I just sort of mark them here. There's a custom function. This is used in Monte Carlo simulation. We're reading and writing cells. We are getting the workbook contents, inserting new sheets, and so on. And then in addition, we have the problem that we have when we do something like run an optimization, run a simulation, or a data mining operation, that's a pretty big computational task. And you're not going to do that in the browser, and you're probably not going to do it in JavaScript. So we're going to do it by, by means of some other online resources. Now, fortunately, we had been working on that for some time. This is actually something that we offer to third-party web developers as a tool called Raison. It's a RESTful Analytics Solver Object Notation. So it is a REST API to carry out optimization problems, run simulations, carry out data mining operations from within your own web app. And we offer that to third-party developers, but we use it ourselves. And inside this is running on Azure. And they're just looking inside the Raison server. There is a front-end API server. Then there's some jobs that are queued up in an Azure queue, and we use Azure Table and Blob Storage. And then the workers that actually execute these optimization simulations and so on use our own Solver SDK, which is another product that we offer, Software Development Kit for developers. So let's see that in use now. And let me go into a browser. And I'd like to take it from the very beginning here. So we're in Excel Online, and we just have a blank worksheet, so we're just starting out. This product, by the way, takes 2 tabs on the ribbon. That's only because currently an Office add-in can have only 1 tab, so we divide it into 2. So if I go to this Analytics Solver tab on the ribbon, I see the same choices we had before. And if I click this model button, then we open a task pane. And now we have the really initial startup experience. What do I do now? And because we are a commercial software vendor, we need to authenticate and authorize people, right? In other words, we do sell this, and so we ask people to log in. We would love to be using Microsoft Identity Management, but we understand that's held back for Office add-ins. But the sooner the better. Then we would love to have that. But right now, we ask the user to log in themselves like this. And so I will log in with my credentials. And then we will go and validate the license. And we'll find, by the way, that since I was just using this software on my desktop, I was using my license over there. And so our license manager says, well, you want to use it over here? That's okay. Just check it out, take it away from the desktop software and use it in the cloud software. Okay, so now we're ready to run in Excel Online. And I'm going to just show you quickly. We have a pretty extensive help center, user guides, example models, and all that sort of thing. And a bunch of training resources. And I'm actually going to go into our example models, go to optimization examples, and then I'm going to find that same airline crew scheduling model, which is here. And now the add-in is going to create a new document in, in OneDrive, essentially. So the Office APIs are doing that for us now. And so we create this document and then we fill it with this example model. And so now we've got that model. We go to Analytics Solver on the ribbon. We click this model button and the task pane opens, and in a second it reads information that's stored within the workbook and populates this set of choices. We're going to maximize, so we're going to minimize total cost by making these decisions. And the main constraint is we want every one of these flights to have exactly 1 crew. So now we can again say optimize, solve complete problem. And now notice it says solving uploading model. That was uploading the model to the Raison server running on Azure, where we put it through the queue and solve it with Solver SDK. I'm going to come back to that Solver SDK issue. And we then bring back the solution and use it to populate the worksheet. And you can see we get the same solution as before. And we can do some other things, like if we double click here, that will insert a worksheet into the workbook. This is something we call an answer report. People who might have used Solver and Desktop Excel would be familiar with it. Shows basically what we did during the solution process. So that's an example of mathematical optimization. I'm going to jump over here and run another one here. I'll go directly to and help to example models. And I'd like to run a Monte Carlo simulation example. And again, this will be sort of airline themes. So I'm going to create a new document and populate it with an example of the airline revenue management problem. And you can see there's a custom function there that just went from sharp name to busy and then to a value. So let's go to Analytics Solver and open the task pane. So this model is reflecting the common case of it's a flight taking off, and what we have is we have people who are no-shows. They don't show up, and from the airline's point of view, that's very bad because airline seats are like perishable inventory. Flight takes off with unoccupied seats. That's lost revenue for good. So airlines will sometimes oversell the flight. For example, here we are selling 110 tickets for a flight with 100 seats. People don't, and so the issue we're dealing with in this model actually is what happens if we overbook the flight and have to pay, overbooking compensation, but also what happens if we undersell the flight or we get lots of no-shows and we have empty seats and we lose that revenue. And so what happens now is one calculation of this little worksheet is equivalent to one flight, flight taking off one time with a certain number of no-shows. If we go over here and double click on this, it's this outline showing us where are the uncertain variables in the model. So this is actually an input cell that is the number of no-shows for a given flight, and we're modeling this with what's actually a log normal distribution. We can show this in various forms. And down here we actually have where we have sharp value. We're calculating a function that will end up being the mean value of revenue, the average value of revenue across 1,000 trials of having this flight take off. So we can do this by clicking simulate here or just clicking this green arrow over here. And so again, we send this off to the Rayzon server in the back end. It puts it through the process and solves it, brings back results. And now we're charting these results. And we're actually charting like 1,000 data points. And for each data point, we've got various specifics, 1,000 trials. And what we're seeing here actually is, in this case, the airline, so 20,000 in revenue is like $200 a ticket times 100 seats. We can sometimes do better, sometimes worse because we're overselling the flight. This actually shows that we do better overselling the flight on the first 10, and then we start doing worse again. And then just to show you what happens
Daniel,
if
sorry to interrupt here. Just a quick time check. We're at 8:55, so just maybe
Okay.
about 4 or 5 minutes, and we're going to be at time.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep, that's okay. Okay, so that's an example of simulation. And then I'm going to show one other example of data mining. And I've already figured out that I need to parallelize this. So I'm going to run a example of a data mining workflow. So in data mining, it's, we're training a machine learning model. And in this case, we're training against this data set from a book club that sells a whole bunch of different genres of books and wants to figure out, what it should offer to customers who have bought certain kind of books before. And in this case, I didn't want Analytics Solver. I want to go to the data mining tab in the ribbon, where we have a whole bunch of choices like these are all the ways you can do machine learning, k-nearest neighbors, neural networks, classification trees, and so on. But if we open the model, the task pane in this case, we actually have here a predefined workflow of a number of data mining steps. So if I look at one of these, this is just partitioning the data into different, into a training set and a validation set. You can sort of see what the setup process looks like. But having created this workflow, I can just run it. And so I'm going to let this run. It's starting to execute all the steps in here. And we'll come back to this at the end. We'll let it run for now. But so now how do we make all this work? Well, you can see that the Rayzon server is a key piece to doing all the algorithmic work, and Solver SDK is the worker in the back end that does all the work. So I thought for all the developers online, I would sort of try to illustrate what's our architecture for doing this. So Solver SDK, as I was saying, is actually a product we offer to other developers, and it's a DLL on Windows. And so inside the dotted line is all the stuff that is in that DLL that you can call from your own user application. In this case, you define the model like that optimization or simulation model in your own code it's like a function you can call with inputs and outputs, which is the same thing as calculating an Excel worksheet one time. And then we offer a object API to the developer in C++ or C# or Java and so on to set up the model and then invoke these different algorithms and run it. And then we have this thing called the Psi interpreter, which I'll come back to, but it allows us to interpret Excel workbooks from within Solver SDK. Now, so how does this look when it's a comment in desktop Excel, the traditional way? Well, it's going to be a similar thing. Instead of this DLL, we will have a large XLL, and it has all these same elements inside that XLL. And it communicates now in place of your custom C# or C++ application. Excel is the application, and we're talking to Excel through the traditional COM API, XLL APIs, and we have UI code and so on. So, but on the local machine, that all runs, in memory on the machine in process. In fact, with Excel, we can't do that in Excel Online. So, how does it look in Excel Online? Well, pretty much like this. And the interesting part, I think, is, first of all, the JavaScript, the Office add-in, which uses JavaScript code and calls the Office.js APIs, is in this first dotted enclosure. All the UI is presented there. And then the other dotted enclosure is really the Raison server. And within the Raison server, we're calling Solver SDK. So when we click Optimize or Simulate or run a data mining operation, we send the model off to the Raison server. We execute it through Solver SDK. We use the Psi interpreter to evaluate the Excel model on the fly, and we get back a solution and send it back. So let's just actually check and see how that data mining operation is going. And sure enough, it has finished. And some of the results are, there's a whole bunch of worksheets that have been inserted here with the results of these different, so we're training and then validating a couple of different machine learning models, naive Bayes and discriminant analysis. So you can find these things, of course, in the store if you're curious about them. And if you're interested as a developer in sort of learning more about what we did and what the architecture was and everything, this is a link up at the top to the session at Build last May. It's available on demand, and you're welcome to take a look at it. It runs for about an hour, by the way, so you got to be that interested in order to take a look at this. So that's it. Thanks very much. Let me see if I can. I think I need to unshare now, right?
I just took back control, so we're all
Okay.
good now.
Great.
Thanks so much, Daniel. It's super impressive, all the work you guys have done, obviously not only to build the original add-in in COM, but then to rebuild it using Office.js. Super great example of how powerful Office.js can be. So really, really appreciate you sharing with us today. So we're going to skip to the end today. We're at the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thanks everyone for joining us today. The recording of this call will be made available soon on the Office Developer YouTube channel. And the next call is the second Wednesday of August 14th. If you'd like to submit some questions ahead of time, feel free to do so via the Office Add-ins form link here on the slide. And like Doug said earlier, if you don't already have the invite for this call, you can use the last link on this slide to add the recurring invite to your calendar. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month.